Belle is a young, brave person just starting in a big world with big jobs. He's a lovely young man eager to try new and exciting things. And Belle is so brave adventure. He stood out because of his bright blonde hair and strong, slim body. His high school classmates all thought he was handsome. People everywhere he went told him how nice he looked. He was different from others because he was brave and wanted to move forward. Let's look at Belle's fantastic trip and what this excellent once-in-a-lifetime event has in mind. Belle wants to try an adventure that changes him and everyone else he meets. This is how it starts. A wild, giant minotaur, a beast with the body of a man and the head of a bull, was chasing him, and he ran as fast as he could to save his life. He was running through an underground tunnel and was stuck at the end of the tunnel. There was no way to escape or hide, so Belle realized this was the end of his life. Minotaur approached him with rage, and just before it jumped upon Belle, a divine-looking female warrior appeared behind and attacked the beast. She was beautiful, young, and indeed a great warrior, so it was easy for her to kill the Minotaur in no time. Minotaur died, exploded into ashes, and disappeared into the air, leaving a shining crystal called a magic stone on the floor. Belle was speechless. Her divinity looks and how she defeated the beast amazed him. Belle entered the elegant, majestic city where he lived, covered top to toe with blood, and people kept looking at him just because of his strange, messy appearance. Everybody in the city knew about Belle. He always got into trouble, so his look did not surprise them. He went to school to meet his friend Ina, a pretty young girl with strange, long ears. Once he met her at the main door, Belle eagerly asked her what she knew about Ace Wallenstein. A moment later, Belle cleaned himself up and sat beside Ina, hoping to hear about Ace Wallenstein. But Ina took a minute to scold him for going down to the lower fourth floor and entering the dungeon alone. After all, an adventurer shouldn't be too adventurous. Ina knew Belle was lucky. Only a few level 1 adventurers with little experience could survive a Minotaur attack. She loved her friend and couldn't stop advising him for his protection. Belle seemed to accept her words, but what he wanted to hear was about Ace Wallenstein. Ina smelled a rat as Belle seemed so shy, and she was correct. Belle had already got a crush on Ace Wallenstein. She revealed to him that Ace Wallenstein was none other than his savior. She was the leader of the Loki Familia, a powerful family in the lower world. Currently, she is level 5. She's said to be one of the strongest swordswomen in Orero, and the gods granted her the title Sword Princess. But this information was not enough for him. He wanted to know whether she had someone special in her life. Ina doubted she did, but for sure, Ina knew Belle's chances with her were close to 0, which was enough to break his heart. They both set off to the magic gem exchange counter to exchange the gems that Belle found that day. On their way, Ina reminded him that he already had the blessings of Goddess Hestia and joined the Hestia Familia. Belle remembered how we got the benefits of Goddess Hestia. A long time ago, we gods descended upon this world that belongs to you, our children, seeking excitement. We decided to live here with you forever in the lower world. We elected to seal away our divine power and experience life with all the hardship and inconvenience it entails. We can only offer you one thing, our blessing, the power to fight monsters. Children given this power become our servants, our family. In other words, you are my servant. You are the only member of the Hestia Familia. It was known that the Hestia Familia was the weakest family in the lower world. So, having a relationship with the leader of Loki's family is difficult. After hearing all these, Belle felt down and Ina wanted to cheer him up. Listen, girls like muscular guys they can rely on. If you grow stronger, she might notice you. She gave him hope. He was excited and determined to do his best to win Ace Wallenstein's heart. Sun was just about to set when he ran to a ruined house on the other side of the city. This part of the city may have stood tall with all its charm and beauty, but now was all ruins. There was no sign of life there, but it was a home for a few people like Belle. Belle entered the house and merrily said, "Goddess, I'm back." The pretty young goddess Hestia ran to Belle's arms happily. She was the only goddess left in the Hestia Familia, and Belle was the only one who accepted her blessings to become a family member. With only 2 members, it's unsurprising that Hestia Familia is known as the weakest and most useless family. She had earned some potatoes by working in the city's food stand and made them for their dinner. They had very little, but she seemed happy in Belle's company. She had a special feeling for him, but Belle had no idea about it. Belle had a great responsibility for her, which made her sad. She didn't want to become a burden to him, so she tried to find some work. She could not even use her divine power to make their life easier. Using divine power in the lower world is forbidden for them. Goddess Hestia also knew about Belle's feelings about Ace Wallenstein, but she also pointed out why he had to forget about her. When he lay down on a bed, Goddess Hesta used her magic power to see some information written on his back and copied it onto a piece of paper. Bel carefully went through the form and noticed his ability had gone up after the Minotaur chased him, but his magic power was still 0. And also there was nothing under skills. These results were not enough for him, but there was a secret only Hesta knew. He had talent, but she hid it with her magic power so he couldn't see it. When he left the room, she read what was written under skills, and it was accelerate growth, the first ever skill he achieved. Hesta knew what caused this change, for her jealousy. It was Wallenstein. Bel woke up the following day. To his surprise, Hesta was in a sound sleep on his chest. It was awkward for him, so he slowly removed her from his body and left home. He felt relieved but didn't know that Hesta was awake when he moved her and went home. The streets were just a little crowded, and he felt lazy and sleepy, so he closed his eyes briefly while walking along the road. He had a vision of 2 angry monster eyes, which scared him to death, and he opened his eyes quickly. There were no signs of danger around him. Instead, an innocent-looking girl in a chef uniform came to him and handed him over a magic stone. She said she picked it up after he dropped it mistakenly. He was confused as he remembered he exchanged all his magic stones yesterday at the magic exchange counter. She'd offered him a packet of food and asked him to come to the pub where she worked to have dinner with her. He made a promise that he would show up on time. After that, he went directly to the dungeon and defeated a Minotaur. As he had to work hard to fulfill his dream, he kept beating Minotaurs for some time and was able to collect several magic stones. At last, for his joy, he picked up a small teeth. In the next moment, something unexpected happened. Many Minotaurs came out from the wall and surrounded him. Thanks to her determination, he could defeat all the Minotaurs and safely go home. Like the previous night, Hesta got a copy of what was written on his back so Bel could read them. He was over the moon when he saw most of his levels go up by big numbers. But on the other hand, Hesta was furious. She had found out he had promised someone to join her for dinner, so she dressed up and left the house in anger. She was sad as she knew all his improvements were because of Wallenstein. She couldn't stand that he loved someone else while he already had her around him. In the pub, the girl who invited him welcomed him with much pleasure and introduced herself as Sir Flover. Servers in the pub served him all the delicious and expensive food. He was afraid he might not have enough money to pay for them all, but they kept serving food against his will. Sir was busy with work, but found time to pause and talk to Bel. She told him that this place interests her as she loves to meet and observe new types of people. Meanwhile, a group of customers who had made prior reservations arrived, so Sir rushed to serve them. There were a few different kinds of people in that group. They were the low-key family members and had been regular customers of the pub for a long time. The girl with long blonde hair and a perfect body in this group got everybody's attention, and Bel overheard people talking about her. They told them she was the famous sword princess, Wallenstein. Bel felt satisfied. Now he knew where to go to see her again. He watched her every movement carefully with eyes filled with love. A boy called Beat in A's group started to tell about what happened the previous day when they were hunting Minotaurs. He humiliated a boy stuck in the dungeon for being so coward and weak that they had to save him. Bel got his cheeks blush. He knew that they were talking about him. He kept humiliating him, but it was clear that all of the other members were not happy about his behavior. A's got the victim boy's side and explained it was their fault that they let Minotaurs escape from the lower 17th floor. When Beat heard this, he lost his temper. He demanded A's to choose someone from him and that loser, Bel. A's didn't answer as she knew Beat was drunk, and her silence made Beat angrier. He used very harsh words to explain what a lowlife that weaker was and how he was a perfect match for her. Poor Bel couldn't stand any of these things. He was ashamed and heartbroken to hear what a weak person he was. He pushed the table and ran out with tears in his eyes. Sir and A's ran out after him, and A's realized that the boy who just run away was the one she saved in the dungeon. Bel ran directly to the jail. He felt so small, humiliated, and lost. He was angry with himself for being useless. It was like he had received so much strength suddenly. Inside the dungeon, he kept defeating beasts and shadow creatures, till he felt good. Back then, at Hestia's house, she was up all night waiting for Bel. She was worried because he had never stayed out at night without coming home. Maybe he had abandoned me, she thought sadly. Then she saw Bel was coming home, and she went forward to welcome him. He was bleeding and exhausted, so he fell on her arms weakly and said, "I want to be stronger." Hestia smiled and said, "Okay," in a promising voice. He's going to write a new chapter of his life soon. It was already morning, and Bel was in bed as he was still tired. Last night was the toughest he had so far. but Goddess Hestia sat on his back and checked his status and improvements in his magical power. You know now that everything about adventurers is written on their backs in his world. To her amazement, he, who had no skills at the beginning, now has acquired a scarce vital skill. Even Hestia hadn't heard about it before. This skill effect is accelerating the growth of his abilities. Hestia figured out the reason for this sudden change must be something incredible that happened last night. Other than that, Bell is motivated to improve himself to win A's Wallenstein, which is also a cause for his change. Hestia was unsure whether she should reveal his status, especially his rare skill. As long as he is motivated, his abilities will improve, and other gods may be watching them. So she thought for a while and decided to keep something to herself as a secret. Instead of copying things on his back to a paper, she just told him what was written on his back. He may not be able to know his actual status in this way. She told him he was growing incredibly, but never mentioned his rare skills. She promised to support him for anything, but in return, she wanted him to promise he wouldn't do anything reckless again. She loved him, and he was the only member she had of her family. After he promised to be careful, she became playful and announced that she was going to the city alone for a few days. Later in the morning, Bell showed up at the pub where he had dinner last night. He had left the pub so quickly that he forgot to pay the bill, so he went there to settle his account. Though Sir, the girl who invited him for dinner, was friendly and nice, all the other staff members seemed arrogant and unforgiving. Sir offered him a lunch packet, just as the previous day, as he was going to the dungeon to defeat. He accepted it as she insisted. There was a party called Banquet of the Gods in the city, which was organized by a person named Ganesha. He welcomed his colleagues to the party wearing a funny elephant face mask. Many people gathered there to have a chat with their friends and a drink too. A couch was in a corner, and 3 guys sat in formal dresses. One was tall, and the other 2 were short. They knew many people at the party and seemed to belong to an upper level of society. After a while, a gorgeous lady entered the hall with her 2 bodyguards. All the attention was on her. She shined like a pure diamond. No words are enough to praise her beauty. Freya. People cheered, calling her name. Freya saw a girl sitting under the dining table and greedily eating delicious food. Freya went to her and yelled, "Hestia, of course." That was the Hestia we already knew. Hestia told her she didn't like her much, maybe for a reason. Freya smiled and said she loved her honesty. Right then, another girl in a black party dress came to Freya. She seemed excited about the party. Both Freya and Hestia knew her. She was Loki, known among all as a mean girl. She enjoyed bullying Hestia, calling her itty-bitty. Anyway, it was a perfect time for Hestia to ask a question from Loki. "Loki, the sword princess of your family, A's Wallenstein, is she seeing someone?" Loki got angry after hearing this question, and the 2 started fighting. Freya watched this drama patiently in a relaxed manner. They both humiliate each other for different reasons. Loki, for Hestia, is so poor that she can't afford a party dress, and Hestia, for Loki, has a flat chest. They began a fight, and people cheered. Some even bet on who would win this quarrel. Indeed, Hestia was not powerful enough to defeat Loki, so Loki raised her and threw her to the floor, marking her victory. Hestia sat on the floor in pain, and Loki left the hall angrily. Then only Hestia heard a soft voice saying to her, "Don't tell me you guys were at it again." She was glad to listen to her favorite Hephaestus. Hephaestus was another beauty with gorgeous red hair and perfect body. But Hephaestus hated Hestia. She was not there to comfort or support her. For freeloading off her family, Hephaestus was angry with Hestia. After all, now it was her chance to humiliate Hestia. As per Hephaestus, Hestia was poor. She had no money, house, or job. But Hestia was proud to say that now things are not as they used to be. She has her own family now. That was not enough for Hephaestus. She already knew about Belle and her little family, so she humiliated Hestia. It was the time for Freya to leave them alone. So far, she was standing there listening to everything Hephaestus told about Hestia. While bidding farewell, Freya said that she knew what she wanted to know. Maybe she has hosted this party and invited Hestia and her enemies to the party secretly. Hephaestus asked Hestia why she was glad to see her and asked her to make a weapon for Belle. When asking this, Hestia kneeled and kept her head on the floor, begging for this favor. Meanwhile, Belle entered the weapon store in the town, and to his surprise, there were many people in perfect gear for a battle. Then he only remembered that this was the time of the year for the annual monster philia. Belle went to check swords that were available to sell, and to his disappointment, they were too expensive for him. Lord Myach, a fine young master, approached him at this moment, and Belle apologized for checking swords without having money to buy them. Maish was a good guy. He also belonged to a small family, so he skipped the banquet of the gods today and was busy making goods to sell. He offered Bel 2 test tubes filled with a light blue color liquid. By then, Hestia was in Hephaestus' weapon-making place. She was still on her knees and head on the floor, begging for something and apologizing to Hephaestus. Finally, Hestia can melt Hephaestus' heart by revealing that Bel has a goal, so he has to go a long way through a dangerous road that he may not survive without a weapon. On the other hand, he is trying to change himself into a better version, so he needs her help. As a goddess, she is responsible for helping him, but she can't buy any weapons without money. He has done everything for her, and it's her turn to do a favor. Hephaestus reminded Hestia that she had to pay the price one day. Divine Smith of Heaven, Hephaestus would make a knife herself for Bel. Hestia couldn't be more happy. But she knew as it is forbidden to use magic power in the lower part of the world, it will be just a regular knife. Hephaestus asked Hestia to become her assistant. It was already a new day, and in the morning, Bel was walking along a street and thinking, where did Hestia go? She left for a few days, so she wouldn't come home today. He missed her, but right at that moment, he lost his thoughts when he heard a girl called Anya, who works at the pub, screaming his name Bel. She handed a small purple wallet to Bel and asked to deliver it to the airhead sir as a favor. Bel needed to be more explicit about these instructions, but to his relief, another girl called Liu came out from the pub and asked Anya to be more specific. Then she explained that she wanted Bel to deliver the wallet to Sir. She had forgotten it when she left the pub after finishing her shift. Bel should go to Meowsterphilia to meet Sir, and Liu tells him that Sir is on a day off today to attend a festival, so without the wallet, she will be in trouble. So it was essential to deliver it to Sir Isekai'd P. Meowsterphilia was a considerable festival the Ganesha family held once a year. Usually, it took place at a coliseum throughout the entire day. They catch monsters from the dungeon, cage them, and release them to the battlefield in front of the crowd. Then someone should defeat it. These battles were fatal. Meanwhile, on an open balcony by the street, 3 people sat and drank. A vast crowd was walking on the roads. They all were going to Monsterphilia. One was Luca, and she asked the person sitting in front of her whether she would seduce some family's child again. She warned that this may start a conflict between the 2 families. All the other person did was smile after hearing this. Luca asked again, so who's the guy? Which child is it you're after? She replied that he was someone she accidentally saw. The third person there was Aze, and she was thoughtful, but kept quiet after listening to her friend's discussion. Hestia and Hephaestus worked hard to make Bel's knife. Some letters were embossed on the blade and shined for a while. Hephaestus wrapped the knife in a cloth and tied it across her shoulders. When Bel came to Meowsterphilia, he saw the flood of people and had no idea how to find Sir among this crowd. Hestia came to him right then, and he wondered why she returned so early. She said she came early because she missed him, and he said he missed her too. Hestia was so happy and playful that she dragged him along the street to date her. But Bel is supposed to find Sir and return her wallet. She agreed to help find her, but only while having the date. On their way, she bought 2 creeps for them. They sat down on a grass patch. Hestia wanted Bel to offer a bite from her creep, but he refused. He thought it was not suitable to consume his goddess's food. Instead, he provided his creep, and Hestia happily had a bite, and she asked him to wipe a drop of cream on her cheek and made fun of it childishly. In a dark, spacious room, there were monsters and beasts locked in cages, and the person talking with Luca on the balcony entered the room. She checked beasts and opened a pen. A substantial beastie monster, "You are perfect," was inside. She seemed satisfied about it, and she told herself, this one is perfect. I had planned to observe his growth for a while, but she was definitely after something. Bel and Hestia were having fish cakes from a vendor, and Bel told her he was looking for a girl to return her wallet, and Hestia was jealous and angry about it. Then suddenly, from a big building nearby, a vast monkey came out and started chasing Hestia. They had no time even to figure out what happened. Bel dragged her through the street, where they entered a strange part of the city. The monster was still chasing them. People in the houses quickly shut their doors and windows, and the beast could stick them at a street corner. It was just about to attack her. Bel gathered all his courage and jumped to its head to hit it. But his effort was useless. The beast was powerful. It didn't even feel Bel's hit. It threw at Bel, again about to attack Hestia, but they managed to escape again. Bel understood that he was not powerful enough to protect her, and they may not have energy in the long run. Bel locked Hestia up in a cell and asked her to stay there till he found a way out. He couldn't risk the life of the only one in his family, so he ran out alone while Hestia shouted his name. The adventurer Bel recalled how he lost his only kin, his beloved grandmother. He got the news that a mountain monster had attacked and killed his grandmother, and he never saw her again. Lost in pain, he decided to become an adventurer and leave the house, but his family did not accept him as he seemed weak. He was broken then, and Hestia was the only one who reached out with her helping hand. Nobody would know where he is today if she was not there for him that day. He can't risk her life even for a short time, so for her protection, he locked her up in a cell and ran away to defeat the monster only by himself. It was after Hestia, Ganesha, who holds the Monsterphilia Festival, learned that 9 beasts from his beast cages have escaped, and several guards are dead. Lord Ganesha was very concerned about the safety of the people outside. Though the strike force of Ganesha's family was already on a mission to catch the monster, Lord Ganesha ordered his soldiers to get the help of other families who were at Monsterphilia at that moment. Ganesha family is responsible for the escape of the beasts, and it will be a black mark on their honor and reputation. Still, Lord Ganesha cares more about the safety of the people than their honor and reputation, so he decided to cooperate with other families to solve this matter. He advised us to continue the festival as planned to minimize the panic. Meanwhile, Bell is fighting with the beast on the street, and Beat breaks his knife into pieces. But still, he fought back with all the courage he had. At the same time, back in the cell where Bell locked up Hestia, she fell down to an underground hall from the cell's floor. For her luck, there was a door to escape from the cell. She had the knife Hephaestus made for Bell and remembered Hephaestus' words when she handed over the knife to her. Listen carefully, Hestia. I have carved hieroglyphics into this knife, making it unique. This weapon is alive. When it's in the hands of its owner, Bell Cranell, it will awaken for the first time and grow as he does. She got into her legs and ran out to assist Bell. In another part of the city, Ina, Bell's friend at school, heard about the beasts escaping through the west wall of the stadium. She was talking with her friend when A's Wallenstein approached them and said, "Has something happened?" leaving them speechless in surprise. Meanwhile, at a corner of the street, Bell was alone with the beast, and this time, he had no escape. He felt his last time had come and wondered whether Hestia had been able to escape from the cell safely. He'd also remembered how A's came and saved him at the exact moment in the past, but this time he had no hope for her arrival too. He was willing to see her for one last time when the beast approached him step by step to kill him. He had already bid farewell to A's and Hestia and accepted his defeat. But right then, Hestia showed up with his knife, and Bell was furious to see her then. She was supposed to be in a safe place out of danger. When the beast saw Hestia, it changed its direction. Now it was approaching Hestia. Bell jumped between her and the beast, and Hestia and Bell rolled down a staircase and fell onto a different street. Bell scolded her for coming back, but Hestia told him she couldn't leave him alone as she had promised him to do the best for him. It was the time she told him it was not the time to give up. She was about to give him the knife when the beast found them, so Bell had to carry Hestia and run as fast as he could. He found a secret door on a wall and could hide behind it. They could rest until the beast found them again, and Hestia wanted that time to be the plan-changing time. But with a broken knife and very little strength, Bell was so pessimistic at the moment, so Hestia cheered him up and gave him their knife, which she named Hestia Knife. When the blade is in his hand, the letters craved on it shined, and he left in tears of happiness. They both were ready for the victory, which Hestia promised she would lead him to. Meanwhile, A's Wallenstein was busy killing beasts who escaped from the stadium. Annette and her friend were watching her fight with beasts and understood why Bell admired her a lot. When she killed the last of them, people cheered her up, but a person came to A's and informed her that one beast called Silverback was still out there. As she learned a witness had seen it chasing a young adventurer down Dale Street, she headed there without taking a break. Hestia was empowering the knife before it was ready to be used by Bell, and the victory was just a matter of time now. The beast finally saw them. Finally, all the pre-preparations are done, and Bell is ready for the battle. This time, he fought back with all his courage and strength and believed in himself, his knife, and his goddess. Ultimately, he won the battle, and Hestia cheered in pleas. Soon, many people gathered, came out of their homes, and joined her. Hestia put her arms around Bell and tightly hugged him, and that was the time A's came there. She watched the couple for some time and left silently. Next happened an unexpected thing. Heisa went unconscious and fell on the floor, and Bell panicked. Nobody saw the person who had covered their whole body with a black cloth, standing still on a wall and watching them. She smiled and seemed satisfied. But for her, this play is still not over. Ina sat by a table and noted the condition of Heisa. She had no fatal wounds or serious injuries. What had happened to her was suspicious. Ina smelled a rat. Meanwhile, Bell was so broken and sat down in the dark under a staircase in the pub. He was trying to figure out what happened to his goddess. Then Streety came to him and asked how Hesta was doing. He thanked him for lending them a bed and was sorry to trouble her, but she was a true friend whom he could count on. On the other hand, she regrets that these incidents happened just because she left her wallet at the pub, so she thought Hesta was her responsibility too. She took a moment to appreciate how he fought. She watched the last part of the fight and admired his bravery. Before leaving, she reveals she is in love with her, shocking Bell. Bell thought maybe she was trying to tease him. To his great relief, at that moment, Hesta woke up and said, "Bell." Bell told her he got scared when she collapsed, and Hesta told him it may be because of exhaustion. Bell wanted to know about the knife, so she told him everything, and the creator of this incredible knife was the smith of heaven called Hephaestus. But Bell knew weapons made by her were expensive. He became emotional, and he understood how much his goddess cared for him. After all, he could rely on her for anything. He cried and hugged her tightly, which made Hesta realize that she loves him. Ina and Bell went to the magic stones exchange counters, and Bell told her he was going to the 7th floor. Ina couldn't believe that he had decided to do something stupid like this. Earlier, he was just about to die on the 4th floor. There was no way he could survive on the 7th floor. But he was confident enough of himself. Few of his basic abilities were already ranked E, and he has become strong at an incredible rate. After hearing about his current status, Ina wanted to check his back to see whether it was true. She was surprised with what was written on his back, but she admitted that she was not able to read it all. Ultimately, she agreed to grant her access to the 7th floor, but Ina's dad had other plans with Bell for the next day. The next day morning, they met at the city center as agreed earlier. Bell was surprised to see Ina. She was indifferent to clothes today. Clothes exactly matched a date, and she looked diverse and beautiful. Bell was the one who came first, so Ina thought he was also excited about shopping with her as much as she did. She waited to hear something about her outfit but kept quiet until she'd asked. His hilarious comment on her business made things funny, and they shared quite an excellent time. They entered the tall and old tower in the city called Barble. It was Hephaestus' family's weapon shop, but Bell was afraid of shopping there. He was a poor guy who couldn't afford even a tiny thing from that shop. But Ina forced him to come with her. The shop was luxurious and elegant. Only the top-level people of the city could afford their weapons. When a salesgirl approached them and asked what she could do for them, they were checking what was available for sale. Bell was speechless when he found out that she was none other than her beloved goddess, Hestia. He knew she was busy with something but never expected to see her like this. Hestia was also surprised to meet him there, and next she got angry when she saw Ina, the half-elf girl. But Ina introduced herself as the Bell's advisor for his forays into the dungeon. But Hestia was not satisfied. She asked whether she was using her position to seduce Bell, but Ina explained that she knew how to balance her professional and personal lives separately. Then they entered the next floor, and Ina told him Hestia seemed strange. This upper floor was not the same as the lower floor. The shop was not elegant or well-decorated, and the prices were too low. They may be lucky enough to have a good bargain. Bell went through the stuff available for sale and found something suitable for him. It was not very cheap, but he decided to buy it. Ina suggests he has a supporter who can explore more efficiently than him. Some people work as supporters. Ina had connections with a few of them, and she could find a good supporter for him. But he was unsure about this idea, so he told her he would think about it and let her know. They were about to depart in the evening, and Ina handed him a small present that may be useful for his journey to the dungeon. She worried about him as she knew many adventurers who didn't come back alive. She wished that may not be his fate. On his way home, a girl who ran in a different direction hit him and fell. A man was chasing them, holding a sword and about to kill her. Bell raised his knife against him and fought to save her life. When they were fighting, the girl called Liu, who worked in the pub with Sir, came to them and said to stop it. She was tough and was able to slay the man. Bell thanked her and told him to be careful. If something happened to him, Sir would be upset. By then, the girl they saved was nowhere to be seen. She hid in a place close by. Even Liu knew where she was, but they forgot about her and went their way. The next day, early in the morning, Bell got ready with all his amour and finally wore the handguard gifted by Ina. Hestia was still sleeping, and though he tried to bid farewell, she didn't wake up. He joined all the other adventurers heading to the dungeon, but he said most of them had a supporter to carry the heavy load they'd had to take. Then he heard someone calling him, "Master, Master, you with white hair." When he looked around, he saw the girl he rescued earlier. She offered her service to him as a salary. She could accept leftovers with the value of the adventure. Belle thought she was a prom girl, but she removed her hair cover and showed her ears. She was an animal person. She was a Chianfro. Her name was Liluka, and she was a short, sweet girl. Belle sat down with her by a water fountain and asked why she chose him as her master. She noticed he was alone, and seeing an adventurer carrying his backpack was not usual. At last, Belle decided to hire her, but she had to become his supporter for a day first, as a test run. Liluka was extremely happy about this. After all, she had a kind-hearted master. In the dungeon, Belle defeated many monsters and beasts without hard tries. Liluka was happy about his skills. She praised him, and he thanked her for being there so he could concentrate on his work. She noticed that his weapon with him was a significant part of his victories, so she was curious about it. He revealed to her that his knife was a gift from the goddess of his family. Lily belonged to Soma Familia. Lily started to pick up the magic stones left on the ground by the beasts her master defeated. But one dead monster was hanging on the wall, so she asked her master to pick up the magic stone from it. He handed her over his previous knife, and she had a chance to look closer at it. She had a strange smile in her mouth. After the adventure, he came to Ina and got new information about her family. Ina was happy to hear this duo's work together very well. Now the rest was in Belle's hands. That's the time Ina asked where is his knife. It was not on his weapon holder. He panicked in seconds and thought he had dropped it somewhere. Meanwhile, Lily went to a vendor to sell a knife, but when the vendor checked the blade, he couldn't offer her more than 40 vials, of very little money than Lily's expectation. The knife was dead and useless in their hand, but Lily couldn't figure out how that incredible knife became very cheap. On her way home, she met Liu and Sir, who were walking in the opposite direction. Lily hid the knife under her sleeve, but Liu noticed it. She asked her to show the knife as she remembered it belonged to someone else. But Lily refused to show it, and Liu knew it was Belle's knife. She took out a coin from her pocket and threw it into Lily's hand, and the pain caused by it dropped the knife down from her hand. Belle searched for his knife everywhere in the city and finally was so tired. Lily ran and hid it again at that moment and fell on the floor. Sir and Liu followed her, and Belle asked them whether they saw his knife. They handed over the knife to him, and he was over the moon. But Sir and Liu didn't tell him it was with Lily, so when they were about to leave, Liu whispered to Lily's ears that she would be watching her. Belle was happy as he got his knife back, so he asked Lily whether she wanted to join him for his next day's adventure. The next day, both Belle and Lily went to the dungeon, and Lily couldn't see the knife in his weapon holder. When she asked about it, Belle told her that he kept it under his handguard, so he wouldn't drop it again. Lily seemed disappointed after hearing this. They discussed how they divide the loot they receive at the end of the day and agreed to have half by each one of them. In the evening, they earned quite a lot of money by selling their magic stones, and it was an absolute pleasure for both of them. To Lily's surprise, Belle split the loot evenly and praised her for help throughout his adventure. He could make more money than a party of 5 could do, so Lily's part was also significant. In the Magic Stone Exchange Center, a person from Soma family went violent and demanded more money for what he sold. Ina was thoughtful after seeing this, as she knew this is an attitude all Soma family members have. Will Belle be okay with Lily? Frigga was watching Belle walking down the lane from an upstairs room, holding hands together. She knew she had to wait some time, so she reached into her book rack and took out an extraordinary book. Meanwhile, Hestia was tired to death after her work at Hephaestus' shop and eagerly waiting to see Belle. But Belle appeared among the crowd right then, but for Hestia's anger, he was holding Lily's hand this time. After seeing Belle with Lily, Hestia is sad and angry and sits in a bar with Miyachi. She forgot her limits and was drunk. She told Miyachi about Belle and how he broke her heart by cheating. But Miyachi knew Belle well, so he didn't believe Hestia's words. She was in a deep love. That's all that Miyachi could understand. When Hestia woke up the following day, she was on her bed, and Belle was by her side. Belle couldn't understand what happened to her, so he asked, "Is there something wrong, goddess?" She was still angry with him, so she just ignored him. He knew this was not a good time to ask her whether she had a day off to go out with her for a nice dinner. He had earned so well by exploring the dungeon, so it was his turn to pay back for all she had done. She lost all her anger by hearing this. She was excited about this date and told him she was ready to go out today. So the time was confirmed. They will meet at 6 p.m. Hestia had other plans before the evening. She went to the divine bath space, where all the goddesses came to have a bath. She met Demeter, a pretty young goddess, after a long time. This was Hestia's first time in the divine bathhouse, so Demeter wanted to know why she was there. Hestia happily told her that she was going to see someone today, but Demeter couldn't believe Hestia was to see a gentleman. Hestia used to be a girl who didn't like any gentlemen, so Demeter was sure to announce the news to everybody in the bathhouse. They asked who he and Hestia shyly said he was one of the children in her family, a human. Everybody laughed at her and she got annoyed and left the bathhouse. In the evening, Belle waited for Hestia, and she came on time. She was wearing a beautiful dress which made her prettier. Hestia was excited about their date. She tried to hold Belle's hand, but suddenly a girl pushed her away, and a group of pretty girls surrounded him and started to flirt. "Is this Hestia's new man?" they cried out, and they were the other goddesses who were in the bathhouse. Hestia dragged Belle and ran away, but the goddesses kept following, so they had to put in a great effort to escape from them. By late in the night, Belle and Hestia were able to come to an empty hall and get rid of them. Hestia was sad. She had lost her most awaited date, but Belle asked her to look outside. It was such fantastic scenery. The night in the city was so beautiful. Belle promised they would come here again, and he would buy her dinner that day. Meanwhile, Lily went to settle her debt with the money she received from Belle as her share. She gave the whole money to the man she owed, and he dragged it from her hand and hit her, telling her to keep earning as much money as possible. The men left, leaving her lying on the floor painfully. She was very close to settling this debt, so she had a thought about Belle's precious knife. It could help her to get rid of all these troubles. As usual, Belle and Lily went to the dungeon the next day, and Bill defeated some beasts. Suddenly, Lily saw a beast approaching Belle in a way that Belle didn't see it. Without thinking twice, Lily used a magic weapon, which she had to destroy the beast before it could harm Belle. Belle was very grateful to Lily for saving his life. They got a break to have some food. Belle offered food to her too. She asked for a day off for the next day to attend a special meeting with her family. Belle was always so kind-hearted, so he granted her a day off. The next day morning, Belle went to the pub to meet Sir to return the lunchbox she had given her. Then he asked her what she does in her free time. She spent most of her free time reading. She had a book called Magic Any Goblins Could Understand with her, a book left by a guest. She gave it to Belle and asked him to return it after reading it. Belle went home with the book and started reading it. He would make it a productive day. The book was fascinating. According to the book, there were two types of magic. The first type was what certain races are born with, and the second, Falma, was granted by a deity's blessings. The second was a form of self-expression. He had to answer a few questions like, what are you interested in? What do you accept? What do you hate? Desire? Sorrow over? Worship? Or vow? What do you honestly long for? He started to answer questions. What is magic for me? Power is a weapon to defeat my inner weakness and strengthen me. What form of magic takes in my mind? Flame, one that burns brightly and hot. A red glow that doesn't suit a weak person like me. What do I seek from magic? The woman who's faster than anyone, like a lightning bolt. I want to catch up with her. Is that all? If it were possible, I would like to be a hero, like in the fairy tales I read when I was a kid. A hero that people would acknowledge. After all, he understood that was him. He was asleep when Hestia came home, but to her surprise, he was sleeping in the same position he read the book. Hestia checked Belle's back, and she was super surprised. He has the power of wielding magic. She never imagined he would be able to use magic. Hestia asked him to sit by her. She asked, you know, you need to recite an incarnation to use magic, right? Normally, when you first gain the ability to use magic, the incarnation is displayed along with your status. But in your case, there's nothing there except the word Swift Strike Magic. You don't need to recite anything to use it. She asked him to try it when he went to the dungeon the next day. She ensured that his magic power wasn't going anywhere. But he was impatient to explore his abilities, so he went to the dungeon once Hestia fell asleep. There was a beast, and he could use a fireball to destroy it. His magic power was absolute. He was unstoppable. He kept killing beasts for a specific time and went a long distance through the dungeon. When he was about to go back, he collapsed with exhaustion. Then Ace Wallenstein and Rivera came through the dungeon. They seemed like hunting beasts down there. When they saw Belle, Rivera understood it was a classic mind down caused by excessive use of magic. He will be safe in a while. When Belle woke up, he was sleeping on the dungeon floor, but his head was on A's lap. He was not sure whether he was hallucinating, but as A's talked to him in a soft voice, he knew this was happening for real. He blushed and ran away as fast as he could. A's was surprised. Why did this boy always run when he saw her? He went home, and he was ashamed to the core. He acted so dumb in front of her. Hestia woke up after hearing Belle's screams and saw the book he had read on a table in front of them. He had made an honest mistake this time. Hestia understood it was a book belonging to a grimoire. When someone reads the book, a grimoire loses its magical power, and that magical power is transferred to the reader. Belle wanted to go and apologize to the grimoire and pay the cost of his fault, but Hestia stopped her. She knew it would not be easy, and the amount he had to pay would be prohibitive. So she asked Belle to act like he didn't read the book, so Hestia can look after the rest of the matter. But it is wrong, so Belle disagreed. He was honest, so the next day, early in the morning, he went to the pub. He gave the book to Mia and apologized, but she didn't care about anything he said. "What's done is done," she said, and threw the reader to a trash bin. Meanwhile, Aina and Riviera were at a winery with a Soma girl. Aina bought a pot of wine as a bribe to get information about Soma's family from that girl. She said they do not worship the Soma goddess. Instead, they worship wine. Lily was ready for the adventure. She waited for Belle, where they usually met. Her debt owner dragged her to a nearby place, and when Belle came there, he saw a man threatening Lily. He was about to go for help, but Lily's previous master came to him simultaneously. He asks him to join him so they both can use Lily for their betterment. But Belle disagreed with him, so he left in anger. Lily came to Belle and didn't mention anything about the debt owner. Instead, she seemed sad. She murmured to herself, "It's time to say goodbye." Lily was a small girl with a short hair. She had no exceptional beauty, but her eyes were always sad. She remembered how she became an orphan. Her parents died in the dungeon while on a beast adventure. Since then, she had to struggle to survive. Most of the time, her hard work was not enough for her masters. She got used to accepting humiliation and beat-ups. She got nothing for her hard work. It found her every time she tried to escape, and her home was stolen. She hated adventures. Anna and Rivera managed to sit with the Soma goddess, Loki, who was in the winery with them. Ace was also standing there, listening to Loki. She was drunk, so Aina asked a few questions. Loki revealed that Soma family only worships things they called perfect stuff, a wine they are selling to nobody. The only reason those children are in the Soma family is so they can drink this particular wine. Soma family was responsible for making divine wine. They had to pay a hefty amount for a sip of that good stuff, and once they had them, they got addicted. So always, they were desperate for cash. They did anything to buy that precious stuff, which made them mean, unfaithful people. Aina got scared when she heard they could take someone's life easily for money. Maybe Belle was in danger. That night, Belle discussed with his goddess, Hestia, about Lily, his supporter. It seemed there were some crooked adventurers after her. He suggested to Hestia, for Lily's safety, whether he could keep her in their place. Hestia was wise, so she asked him whether he could trust her. Hestia knew it was going to sound harsh, but she had to tell him that she seemed shady. She asked him to think about how he lost his knife. She has never spoken about the adventurers who attacked her, so trusting her quickly was not a wise decision. Lily tried to convince Belle to go to the lower 10th floor the following day, but Belle needed clarification. He almost died on the lower 7th floor. It was Lily who saved his life at that time. He knew it was risky. That was where the enormous beast showed up. But Lily didn't give up. She guaranteed he would survive on the 10th floor with his strength and magic power. She knew it as she had been to the 11th floor. Meanwhile, Aina wanted to talk with Hestia about Belle's safety, but she was assigned to do some important work at her workplace, so she had to postpone the meetup. She saw Ace coming to her, and that was when Ace knew Belle, who she saved once, was an adventurer Aina was in charge of. Ace was curious to see if he was afraid of her. He ran away when he saw her, but Aina confirmed that it was not like that. He was genuinely grateful to Ace for saving his life, which was a relief for Ace. That was when both of them overheard a man saying Lily would set up the white-haired boy. Aina feared it was about Belle, so she asked Ace a favor. Belle was in the dungeon heading to the 10th floor with Lily. She gave him another blade, saying that this weapon would more effectively kill more enormous beasts than his knife. When they come to the 10th floor, a giant monster shows up. Lily encouraged Belle to attack it, and with all excitement and self-confidence, he attacked the monster. He defeated it with Lily's knife, but another beast appeared in no time, so he used his magic power to beat it. He couldn't see Lily around, so he called out her name. In no time, another 2 monsters appeared, and he might not be able to make it this time. He was looking for Lily as he was not sure she was safe. But all of a sudden, a small blade attached to his string approached the small pouch attached to his leg, detached it, and took it away in no time. It went to Lily's hand, who was on the edge of a small hill. She held the pouch with a smile and said, "It's the end." Aina was working with Hestia at the armory for her guild work, but Hestia saw her mind was on somewhere else. Aina told her that it was about Belle's supporter. Lily abandoned Belle on the 10th floor and came out. She had seen her old master talk to Belle, which made her trust in Belle break down. After all, she hated all adventurers. There was no good about them. She had no regrets about what she did to him. She had his knife, which she could sell for a reasonable price. She can escape from her family and find freedom if she gets enough money. She ran along the dungeon with all these hopes, but she fell down as her old master appeared. He beat her hard and tore her clothes to find out what she had. He was impressed to see the magic weapon in Belle's knife. Lily's debt owner also came to them with 3 other guys. On their shoulders, there were sacks, and in each pack, there was dying ant beast. They threw them to the adventurer. It was known that the dying ant beast sent a signal to other ant beasts, so soon that place would be fatal. When the adventurer understood he couldn't win this battle, he left. The debt owner reached Lily and asked her to cooperate to find her savings so she could release her. She had no choice other than to agree with him. She revealed that she converted all the money into jewels and hid them secretly. She gave him the key, and he threw her to ant beasts as he had no use of her now. He used her as a decoy to leave the place safely. Lily was on the floor. She was so broken and in pain. She knew she would die soon, and she was happy about it. After all, it was time to leave her painful, worthless, lonely life. Ant beasts surrounded her, and she almost let go of her life, but suddenly she heard someone say "Firebolt," and then all the ant beasts were destroyed. Someone has come to save her, and that was none other than her master, Belle. "How did you survive?" Lily asked. There was another adventurer out there on the 10th level, but Belle couldn't see who it was as it was misty. But thanks to him, he had enough time to save her. Aina asked Hestia's help to convince Belle to abandon that supporter, but Hestia said it was no use. He had already made his decision. He knew what Hestia was saying was true, but he couldn't abandon her as she seemed she was in trouble. She looked lonely and sad, the same as he was before he met Hestia, so he had to be there for her no matter what. Lily was angry about her pathetic status. She betrayed him. But still, he was coming to help her. She was mad at him. Was he blind all the time to not notice her faulty work? She told him how she cheated him, about the money she received after exchanging magic gems. She couldn't stand his excellent behavior after all the wrong things she did to him. He was too good for a cheater and thief like her. When Lily calmed down, Belle comforted her. He told her he was there for her for anything, so she had to tell him all her troubles. Lily jumped into his arms and burst into tears. Finally, everything happened for a good reason. Belle went to Aina to apologize for losing his handguard, which he received as a gift from her, but she was happy to see him safe. Back on the 10th floor, Ez was defeating monsters, and she found a handguard and wondered to whom it belonged. The next day, Lily was waiting for Belle, and he came cheerfully. He asked her whether she could be his supporter for his adventures in a playful way. Lily held his hand and said yes. Life was going to be good for her after that. Like and subscribe for more full recaps like this.